just to be clear with you, right, Gary, and everyone that's watching here, we did not have that vision initially when we started from that small little juice bar to where we are today. It just continues to evolve, and I think what I've really learned that is really important is also to really listen to the problems that our clients have. That is where the opportunity lies.
Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of CEOs Confess. Today I have for you an individual who has managed to get into the health industry, who's also created a brick and mortar location, which is then now educating people. And then lastly, since COVID-19, he's been really able to scale his business and move it into the digital platform, and basically, from what I hear, has increased revenue by a ridiculous amount of money. So today we're going to try to get his information on how he's done that here in Southeast Asia or in Singapore, and how he's planning to expand throughout the other regions. But without further ado, he's got this amazing start of the story in terms of where he came from and why he started this business in the first place. But I'm not going to get too much more into it. Let's talk to the man himself, Mark Leong. Welcome, Mark Leong. How are you doing?
Hey, Gary. Doing great. Thanks for having me as a guest in your show. It's an honor to be sharing with you and, of course, all your audience as well. And hopefully, we can give them a lot of value to everyone that's watching this amazing podcast.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we're really glad to have you on in the first place because, as you know, we're aiming to get these interesting stories out from Southeast Asia and the businesses that have found success. And by the sounds of it, you have definitely done that for yourself. So I guess for a lot of the audiences who are probably watching or listening right now, they're not going to know where you came from or how this all started. And I want to give them the context to how you started this whole thing, because it's a rags to riches story, and a lot of these entrepreneurs who are starting are going to have a similar situation. So let's start with that. So tell me a little bit about how did you start this idea of farms and get into the nutrition and juicing and all that kind of stuff. What was the origin story for that?
I did not start up to be an entrepreneur. I was working in the world's top 10 MNCs, and what happened was that one day my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer of the nose, throat, lung, and liver. So basically what we did was, of course, we went with the conventional recommendation of putting him through chemotherapies based on what the doctor recommended, and that did not turn up to be positive, and he was only having about another 2 more months of lifespan left after the treatment. So it really triggered me to do my best in terms of looking for alternatives. That was how I went in to research more about nutrition, and more importantly, that was how I discovered juicing. So that remaining 2 months that my father had, we managed to expand his lifespan to another 4 more years, right? Just by putting juicing as part of his diet. And of course, when I talk about juicing, it's not about those typical those fruit juices or those conventional juices they buy in a supermarket, right? These are really hardcore green juices. So, and for me is that as I dig deeper down into cancer, I realized that there's a lot of information in the health industry and the food industry that we have not been told. So that was how the idea came out, that I wanted to educate more people about the amazing things that juicing could do for them, and that led to the first idea where I start up my business called the Farms cold press juices, right? So that was how we started originally.
So tell me, I mean, that's an amazing story, right? So you started off with this situation, this do or die situation, to help extend your father's life based on circumstances not in your control, and then you somehow managed to extend his life by, you said 4 years, right?
Yes,
just
4 years.
4 years straight just on juicing. So in terms of cost for going through chemo, and you can only imagine what going through chemo is like. Just by helping change that nutritional thing, you helped him extend by 4 years, which that I believe is, that extra time is invaluable for someone. So already like an amazing story, and that helps you spring up your very first business, if I recall, right?
Right.
Where you created
A
what
juice
was
bar.
it, a juicing bar? Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your juicing bar. Like, where did you start it off with? What happened at that juicing bar?
It started off with I went to back then one of my friends, and I said to both of them, I said, you know what, we got to do this, right? I'm a firm believer that more people need to know about this, and what we find about the juices that are sold out, commercially, whether it's through a box or through someone selling in a shop, there's a lot of information that's lacking there, right? So I remember when I shared this idea with my partner Min and Yok Ping, they were like, okay, it sounds like a cool idea. Let's do it, right? Let's do it.
Yeah,
So
let's try.
and of course, during that whole process, they also saw how I transformed myself from being a person that is 95 kg overweight with a whole long list of health conditions. Got it all off in a short period of 3 months. They said, wow, okay, this is amazing, Mark. We got to do this. So before everyone started chipping in money into the first juice bar, so what all my partners did was they did the detox themselves. They went on a juicing diet and they introduced it to their whole family, and everyone saw that change. And that was where it's like everyone is very convinced and said, you know what, let's do this and let's put our savings in to get the first juice bar started. So I remember we were so excited. We went around hunting for places, and we found one very lovely spot in Singapore. It's called Bukit Timah Plaza.
Okay,
Right, and this small little area here, and technically I was still attached to my full-time job, so I was like, okay, let me put in my some money in there, and let's see how it goes from there. While I'm not willing to take that big step yet to leave, my 5-figure paying job that I was really comfortable with, right? So we put in an investment, we got the ball rolling, and that was how the juice bar came out, the first outlet in Bukit Timah for my business. And of course, during that time we had plans that, after we start up the first outlet, we wanted to build multiple outlets across Singapore and eventually Malaysia, right, to make it into a chain.
So you're already
6 months.
thinking of like expanding the juice bar idea, right? But
Yes.
I do remember, I mean, before we go too far into that stuff, you talked about your investments. You also talked about not willing to give up your more comfortable day job, right, to just embark on this entrepreneurial like business. So maybe to give the audience more context to like what was the struggle, the decision making struggle there. First of all, how much did you have to invest in the first place for that first juice bar to happen?
We started off with about 100,000, right, just to technically get the basic renovation done. Then eventually,
Just to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, just to get the ball rolling, right? Then eventually realized that, okay, oops, 100,000 is not enough, because then you gotta hire employees, you gotta do the branding, you gotta do the design work, and etc. Eventually, after the first few weeks of putting 100,000 in, we fork out another 200,000. So just to get everything started, initially we have to put in 300,000 cash, right? Yep. So that was the amount that we have to put in.
Okay, so just for everyone listening here at the moment, let me give you some context to why that number is so big here in Singapore. The cost of locations here in Singapore is very expensive. So this might not be the same in other regions, but in Singapore, that's the reality of starting a brick and mortar location anywhere, mostly anywhere in Singapore, especially if you're finding it in a mall or in a location where there's a lot of heavy traffic. The price of any rental space super exponentially grows, right? So I think that's, confirm with me if I'm right or if I'm wrong, Mark. Like that is part of the reason.
Absolutely. So out of that 250,000, right, I would say probably 30% already goes to the rental part, because like what you mentioned, right, in Singapore, what is expensive is always about the space, right? So on a rental loan, before we even start business, we got to put in 5 months of deposit, right? 5 months.
Deposit. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
So 3 months
that's
of
expensive.
3 months of deposit, and in fact 2 months of advance. So that there is already 100,000 gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, before you even did anything, $100,000 spent. I mean, there's a reason why Singapore is AKA known as the little red dot, right? If you look on
Yes.
the map, it's literally a dot in the geographics of Southeast Asia. But let's kind of get a little bit more into that, because
Mhm.
I want audiences to know that even from that very first juice bar, you didn't quite find 100% success in that first endeavor at that time, correct? Can you give? I mean, if you're okay to share, like what was your average revenue for that first year in comparison to how much you were possibly losing per month from rentals and overheads?
Oh, it was painful, right? I remember, in the first year, our revenue was only about 30 over thousand, right? Ballpark
Okay.
figure, it did not even exceed 40,000. We were only making about a couple of hundred in terms of revenue per day. We were so excited when it comes to the weekends, because sometimes on the weekends we could hit, close to $1,000, so we were
Yeah.
really, really happy. In terms of losses, it was it was really devastating, right? We told ourselves that, you know what, let's give all of us, me and my partners, to say, let's give us 3 to 6 months, right, before we talk about profit, right? So we were already like, okay, let's 3 to 6 months, we're just going to continue to pump in money, because we thought that, that is how business is, right? We have been told,
Yeah.
when I confronted my friends who are doing business, I say, where's the fastest time that you ever generated, income, right? Margin, not revenue, but really see profit, right, from your business.
Yeah,
Say,
net
Mark,
profit.
you gotta have patience. You take about at least 6 months, right? If you are super good, then 3 months, right? So we built in that mindset. So we were pumping in about 10,000 to 15,000 for the first few months from our pocket. Then as along the months went, after that 6 months, the number that we were injecting into the business increased, right? It didn't decrease, it increased. So we were going around about close to 18,000 each month that we were injecting into the business. And this is purely, we were running at a negative, right? The P&L is red. So
Yeah.
it was really heartbreaking. We were working very hard, right? I remember, after my full-time work, I was coming in, I was working with my partners until 2 a.m., 3 a.m., right? We wake up very early trying to figure out what else can we sell. We were doing everything. And weekends, we were almost there all the time, speaking to our clients, asking them, what are the juices, and we just wanted to make sure that, first of all, everyone gets the best service, and hopefully they will come back and buy more. But there was a lot of mechanics behind that. At that point of time, I didn't understand that. We did not have that, right? It wasn't as simple as, this idea is great, more people should know about it, I'm passionate about it, let's put money in and hope that, apart from educating people, we are going to make some good profit out of it, right? So I realized that was not enough. And it is the wrong mindset to go in and start up a business.
Yeah, that's good. That's exactly the advice we're kind of trying to get out of these stories, because I think that is what a lot of entrepreneurs, especially those who've never started a business before, they don't know the mechanics behind building a business. They think like, I'm just gonna set up a stand, have my product, and then it's just gonna sell, and I'll make money in like the next couple of months. By the sounds of it, it's not like you weren't hustling, right? Because that's what the entrepreneurial mentality always is. Like, if you just work harder, you're gonna eventually make money. It's like yes and no, because you need to understand this mechanics behind everything, and then also then understand your audience. So that's really good stuff to know.
So, and Gary, I think it's really important to share with you guys that, as I was mentioning, that we were injecting money every month. We were losing. It came to a point that I almost, in fact, not almost, I depleted my savings, right? And what I did was I started selling my stocks, that were generating good dividends for me, because I was so hesitant to go and call up my friends and say, hey, I'm in deep shit, can you guys just loan me some money? I didn't want to go to the bank. I thought that the first point of contact is going to be the people around me, right? I didn't want to call my family members, because I did not want to give them that burden. And initially, when I thought about the whole idea about starting my own business, I remember my family members did not support. They were like, you know what, just stick to your your high paid job, you know,
Stick to
you're doing
your
very
comfortable
well.
job.
Yeah, you're doing so well, right? Why you're traveling around the world? Why would you want to give yourself this headache? You know, so for me, it's like if I were to go to them and tell them that, you know what, it didn't go so well, but I'm not willing to give up yet. I was holding back that ego, right? That fear that they will laugh at me and say, "See, I told you it didn't work." So, you know, I want to call my friends, and I tell you that was the feeling that I never got before in my whole life, because I never called anyone to say I need money. It was really, really full of fear, right? So of course I sold my stocks, and eventually it went downhill after I got my investments to inject into my business. And I remember calling my first best friend, right? Her name is Hannah. I say, Hannah, I need help. I'm desperate, man. I've depleted my savings. So I just want to take this opportunity to share with you that I've been through that really humiliating level, and I think I was quite blessed in a way that she was willing. She was the first person I contacted and the first person that agreed to loan me money. When I probably would not get that from my other friends if I were to call them, right? So some of us were experienced to that level of humiliation. You know,
It can feel humiliating because I think in also Asian culture, there's this how do you say in English? Aibina.
Aibina, yes.
You need face, right? And for someone who, from by it sounds like in your regular job, you're already successful. For Asian culture, like if my parents, same thing with my parents, if I'm already making money and I want to do this thing that I feel is like in my heart I want to try, but it's a risk. Your parents or your immediate friends and family members might look to you and be like, "Why? Are you stupid?" Right? Like you're gonna give
precisely.
up all this stuff for this chance to go broke, and then what happened to you is like you literally were going broke. You were at in between a rock and a hard place, right?
Yep.
And I think that's what I think you mean by it's almost embarrassing to then have to reach out to ask for help when at one point you were already so successful.
Right.
So that's something emotionally that you had to overcome by the sounds like, right? And
Yep.
you're telling me if people are going to do their own business from the ground up, they should understand that this could happen to them.
Yes, it's not all rosy pictures that is painted out that entrepreneurs are cool. You know, there is a smooth sailing overnight success. You become a millionaire or multi-billionaire. So, I mean, maybe there are some out there, I don't know, but definitely not for me.
It's like people will only see the tip of the iceberg, which is the success, but they won't see the 80% of hardships and things that you went through to get there, which is, I think, for me at least, and for this channel, is the whole point of having this conversation is to be able to get this info out there to people. Because I do feel a lot of Asian people, especially the younger generation who's coming out of school, they are getting pumped this idea that just do your own business, entrepreneurship, screw your studies, screw this, screw that. Like you should start your first job at 6K pay or whatever. I'm like, I didn't experience that.
Yeah.
So I hope this eventually gets to the right audience and they get to hear these stories. But I want to move on to learning about now, like how did that progress? Because I know that there was 4 more variations of the business before you actually got to where you are today. And from your background, your whole brick and mortar system, I know you're online now, but let's just go through the timeline here. So once you did the juice bar, what was your next move? Because you already talked about expansion, but you're already in debt. You got some more funding in, and then now you're looking to expand. So what happened next?
We went through almost like 5 levels of evolution, right, for my entire business from where we started. And while I'm going to share what are the 4 different stages after the first one that we went through, the more important
maybe just share the second one first, because
Okay.
I will get into the other
Sure.
parts.
All right. So the second one is that we wanted to expand, like I said, multiple juice bars across Singapore in technically every supermarkets and every food court out there, right? So we started
ambitious.
Yeah, we were going for biddings, and back then I view it as unlucky that I did not manage to get the stalls that we were bidding for. Someone else, went with a higher rate and they got the price. So technically, it did not go the way we wanted. So after many months of trying to get the good spots, we were a bit tired. And that was where we decided that, you know what, let's just go with another second outlet first. Let's build a super big double-story unit instead of that small little juice bar, and let's see how it goes from there. So that was the second evolution that we went into after failing to secure those small little spots.
Now, this is a question for me because I don't actually know too much about the bidding thing. Is this very common, like around Southeast Asia or around the world, or is this more of a Singapore thing where you have to bid to get these locations?
Definitely in Singapore. Of course, if you are going for private properties, then you don't need to go on a bidding. But if you're going for government-related properties, like for example, if you're going to those famous happening food courts, right? Like Holland V, you know? All these great spots, right? Then yes, you got to be bidding for those really, I would say, high in demand stalls. Yep.
High footprint areas. Okay, so that's good to clarify because that's what I was wondering. It's like, okay, do you have to do this even in the private sector? So this is really just on the government area location. So again, for the viewers and listeners, in Singapore, the government has a lot of these areas for like hawker stores, where a lot of portion of the local public and, you know, foreigners and visitors as well they'll have a lot of foot traffic. And by the sounds of it is you can't just dump money and then just get the location. You have to go through the government, get access, and then there might be multiple people bidding for the same location, and then the government, confirm if I'm right or wrong, will basically decide whether or not they want to give it to you. Correct?
Yes, you are right.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So that because the government, I guess, didn't see you as a business that could get these stalls, you then went and built your own brick and mortar location instead, right? Which is the warehouse I believe we're currently seeing. Is that
no?
So
This is the in fact the fourth level of evolution. So
okay,
this is not the one, right?
Okay, so maybe let's start with the warehouse then. So what then happened in your warehouse version? Because that's when I believe you started going into more of training stuff. So not just like providing a juice product, but then providing knowledge, right? So first, what was the big shift in business plan, and how did that reflect the location and the business choices that you made?
So, like I mentioned, right? So we were trying to look for multiple locations so that we could expand our footprint, but somehow that didn't work out. So we were continuously bleeding again for many months. And what happened was that I was lucky enough to be invited by some of the private schools and of course some of the big brands that are associated to producing cold press machines, right? So they invited me to go there and give educational talks to their clients. So after every single talk that I gave, people kept coming up to me and say, Mark, do you guys sell any program? I do not want to buy juices only. I do not just want to buy machines. Can you please support me, right, in my journey of getting rid of my acute conditions or my chronic conditions? So I said that yes, I have a background there, but I let me think about that, right? So I went back home and I started thinking about, wow, if there is a lot of these health issues out there and people are struggling to know exactly what to eat, what to do, and that was where I told my partners, right, I think then this is something that probably when we educate them, then it gives them better reasons to do juicing in the long run instead of just coming to us and buy a cup of juice, once a week, right? So, and of course, we were also saying that, you know what, maybe we're not seeing results also, no matter how hard we work, no matter how much money we are putting in, because why? We always think that there is a safety net, right? While we are clinging on to our full-time job. Now, why not we do this, right? Let's go all in, right? Or let's go back to working full-time, right? Because I say I don't see the light that we are having one foot in here and one foot out, right? So why not let's take one more big risk. If this doesn't work out, at least what's the worst thing can happen? Let's go and get a job. That's it, right? We start all over again.
Start over again.
We are ready.
So
Sorry.
So this was your tipping point.
Yeah,
by
this
the
was
sounds of
tipping
it.
point, right? So I say we are already broke. We depleted our savings. Let's just go one more time all out, right? And
Yeah.
what could happen? Probably we just tell ourselves that we don't have holidays for the next 5 years. Okay. So I gotta say that at that point of time it was really, really scary. It took me quite a number of weeks to think about, telling my boss, go screw yourself, right? I'm gonna do something, So
Yeah.
so eventually we said, okay, let's do this, right? Let's do this. So I resigned before we even got our official brick and mortar of the double-story place up. I resigned. Then we locked ourselves in a room for 1 week. We came out with designs, and then we said, okay, you know what? Let's go and hunt for a double-story unit, and let's do some education there. So that was
Okay.
how we went into the part of securing our second unit, which is located at Tanjong Katong.
So that was the first origin story of the education portion of your current business today, right? And that was from, by the sounds of it, it's like from you having to go to these places and educate other people based on their lack of health, and then they understood that, oh yeah, like juicing sounds like a good product, but they didn't want to juice. They wanted to learn more, so that it's more of like, and I see this coming a lot into play in today's corporate world and different business models, and it's not just like providing the fish anymore, right? But it's like also teaching you
how
to
to fish, right?
Correct. So
Yes.
it's like you give a man a fish, he feeds himself for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he feeds himself for life, right? And I guess that's part of the concept that originated the education portion that you guys discovered. And then your brick and mortar place, you then started developing the education model, right? Inviting people in to learn about juicing. So
Yes.
in there, you also provided the equipment and everything. Like how did your pricing model for the first few sessions like that, how was that created?
It was really painful. I remember we were trying to sell our first educational program for 350 Singapore dollars, right? There was zero sales. We got our first sales when we went into a farmer's market. I still remember it was in the west side, Kranji. We were standing there for 8 hours throughout the whole day, and somebody finally came and said, you know what, I'm going to sign up on your education program for $350. Me and my partner, we were so happy, we were so excited. So I thought that pricing it at a very affordable rate would allow us to generate high revenue, but I was wrong. So eventually what happened was that we were trying to figure out why no one would be buying something worth 350 when there is so much contents and value in there, right? Then we realized that, oops, it was a shitty marketing, that we didn't basically project exactly what the clients will be getting. Now again, what we were doing is that we were only indicating what people needed, but not what people wanted. Okay, this is a very important thing here for everyone that's watching here, right? What we didn't do was we did not put out exactly what people wanted, but we only indicated what people needed. So that was where screw up. Now, long story short, what happened next was that, of course, we adjusted our pricing. We raised our prices up to 1,005. And eventually the sales went crazy, right? After changing the strategy around how do we put out the value and what the clients perceive as value.
Value, yeah. Okay. I mean, that's interesting, because like I see this happen all across different businesses, and it's like you try to price competitively, but then like you're saying, if you're not projecting or marketing, and you got to spend a little bit of money on marketing as well, but if you don't have the right strategy for marketing, then even at 350 people aren't going to be willing to give you that dollar. But if you market properly, even if you raise your price, and by the sounds of it, you raised your price by 350%, right? Is my calculation there? Like around 350%.
$350 to 1,005, yeah?
Yeah, that's a big jump. But you actually, because of the marketing, you got more clients, which is surprising. So it's not like the money that was the issue. And this is particularly for maybe Singaporeans and also the target audience that you have, right? They might be a bit more on the capable spending area. But it's not the money that's the issue. It's the perceived value that you were supposed to give it to them. And once you sorted that out, then the business started streaming in. And then that's where I believe you started finding success. You weren't at least you weren't going deeper into the red at this point, right? You were slowly starting to climb out, correct?
Yes. So it was really amazing, right? From red, then over in a short period of 1 year, we turned to green. So yep.
Nice. Okay, so in 1 year, so after 1 years of suffering, or what, 1+ years, over the course of discovering all this new information, then you started seeing green. Then once you started seeing green, now I believe is your fourth iteration where you started expanding on that same concept, correct? And then you went from, so maybe you tell the story here. So you went from just juicing, more education, and then you expanded. So what was the next choice in expansion?
The reason that allowed us to make that bold step to go on the third evolution of expanding after the second outlet was established, it did not only come with this level of confidence, right? If you remember, I was sharing with you earlier that the first year in my Bukit Timah, we were only making about 30,000 of revenue. What happened was that at the second level of the business that we got into, we were able to generate from 30,000 to 1.2 million in a short period of less than 12 months, right?
Okay, so my math is not that good, but that's a lot. That's a very big jump, right?
Right.
30,000 to million plus. Right,
million plus, right? And I think a lot of people always also, we should cover that in a short moment, right? And the thing is this, it's not only about the top line, but what is more important is the bottom line. So we say that, you know what, hey, this is great. We are doing the right thing. So now how can we host more events? Because our double story space is not allowing us to run events consistently, right? So that was, so what we said was, you know what, let's go out now and rent bigger spaces to do events. So that was when, on top of our existing spaces, we were going out, renting spaces, doing multiple events. That was the third level that we got into. But eventually, the challenge that I faced is that we were so horrible in marketing that eventually our cost per lead, right, that we were paying to social media platforms like Facebook continue to go up, and the worst thing is that it continues to double up, right? And we just keep burning money. It's like, okay, as long as we get people through the door. And long story short, of course, after that, we figure out that, you know what, this just can't continue that way, that we continue to rent spaces out there while our marketing costs on social media platforms are rising. Now, why not we go and get a bigger space this time, right? Let's go and get a bigger space, and so that we can save that cost, and we use that savings on space rental to bump it into the digital marketing place, right? So that was one of the key thoughts. And of course, secondly was that after a while that we were constantly selling our education piece around juicing only, and people started to come and tell us, right, my clients started telling, you know what, Mark, you know, I've got a struggle here. I say, what is the struggle? The struggle is I do not know what to eat. You know, I can't be drinking juices every day, right? I still got to eat. And it's a challenge in Singapore that I go out and find the food that you recommend me to eat. Yeah, it's great. You're telling me exactly what to have for breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner for my condition. You know, but I can't find this outside unless I cook them. I got no time to cook, right? So, and me and my partners like, you know what? Why not we, first of all, they don't know what to cook or how to cook. And secondly, they don't have time to cook. So we say, you know what, great. Let's go and find a big space right now. On top of our juicing education and food education, we expand, we teach people, in fact, how to prepare healthy meals as well. So that was how we got into this current space right now of a 4-story building, which is on the fourth part of our whole business in terms of how we evolve. And again, just to be clear with you, right, Gary, and everyone that's watching here, we did not have that vision initially when we started from that small little juice bar to where we are today. It just continues to evolve. And I think what I really learned that is really important is also to really listen to the problems that our clients have. That is where the opportunity lies. I realized that in the early days when I was starting up my business or my entrepreneurship, I wasn't listening exactly to what the market wanted, right? It was more about what cool ideas I could have, what could I put out to the world, what am I passionate about. But what I'm passionate about, what I think is cool or is important may not be exactly what people wanted, or more importantly, it's not really solving people's problems. So that was how we came into the fourth part of having this brick and mortar, business established.
Yeah. So, I mean, I believe that's important to reiterate too. It's like, because a lot of people are like, follow your dreams, follow what's going to make you happy, follow your passion, right? And I feel like a lot of people, especially people going to start their own businesses, is they're just going to follow their passion. And in your case, which you explained, it's like, it's not just doing what you feel people need. That's maybe one part of the equation, but it's also then matching it with what does your audience or your clients, what do they want? Yes. And then somewhere in the middle, you need to make that connection, and then that is the business plan, because that's matching your passion to a problem that and then being able to sell it. And then by the sounds of it, and I want to touch a little bit more into this because we do want to capture more of the Southeast Asia or the Asia reasons for changing. Because you mentioned like your clients were like, if I want to eat this or this is your recommendation, like that's all fine and dandy, but I can't find this all the time. So I remember you telling me there was a change in what you sold as well. In terms of, it's not just salads and carrots and stuff, because I know Asian people, they're not going to eat that. They want white rice, they want the fried egg, they want the zi cha, all this kind of stuff, right? So then how did you change your product to fit that need as well?
So what me and my partners were doing was that we were analyzing, right? Like today, how many salad bars are there? How many healthy food chains were rising? And one thing we saw that everyone had in common is that they were serving Western dishes, right? Like salad, Greek dishes that were healthy, like quinoa and a bit of olive oil and all that kind of stuff, right? A whole mountain of rabbit food, right? I call it rabbit food because I'm a person that used to enjoy fried food, a lot of meat. So I can't do it, right?
Yeah, KFC, man. It's the
best. KFC,
man.
Yeah. So and that is the reason why I needed juicing in my life, because I can't take raw vegetables. So I say, you know what? If I am one of these individuals, maybe I'm the weird one out. So what I did was I started calling up every single friends of mine and my ex-colleagues and asked them, right? Hey, do you eat salad? Do you eat salad? And everyone's like, no, man, it's crazy. No, I can't. So I realized that, okay, actually I'm not alone. And many of the people out there are like me, especially Singaporeans, Malaysians, right? At night we want hot, savory food. We can't eat cold stuff, right? And most of the time we want something that is savory, right? And more important, it's not cold or chilled. So I say, you know what? Let's do something unique that the market do not have back then. We're going to redesign healthy food in an Asian way. So it's going to be warm, it's going to be in a curry, but of course the curry, you do not use those highly processed, spices or coconut oil, you use the fresh stuff. So we invented that, and we basically kick it out, and we tested it out with our existing clients, and they love it, right? It was like, oh my God, this is amazing, and I cooked this for my family members, and everyone love it. So for us, it's like, wow, we hit the right spot. So that was how the whole idea came out. And that was how we tested before we decided to go on a bigger scale.
So it sounds like once you targeted that, or once you got that sorted out, that really helped increase more people's kind of maybe word to mouth, expectation of the quality of service. Because I like the fact that you pinpointed this necessity of like, rabbit food per se. I mean, I feel like that's what the westernized palate is okay with, because I come from Canada. I know what that tastes like, and that's the recommended style, right? And if you ask a Westerner, it's like, oh, eat curry for breakfast, they're like, wow, you can eat something so heavy for breakfast? I'm like, in Asia, that's like normal, okay? We eat like mee soto and everything, the moment we wake up, which, the concept of rabbit food, yes, it is healthy, but is it relatable to the demographic here? It's not all the time. Right, for your target, and to recognize that, and then to this is where I believe being maneuverable and malleable in your business, then you shifted. And once you shifted, you got a better response. You got a better response from your clientele. And then from there, they continued to follow. And I'm guessing your clientele grew from there as well, correct? It grew much bigger.
Right. So in a short period of, if we were to put numbers in perspective,
always nice to have.
From
yes.
35K in the first year, we grew to 3.4 million of turnover in 36 months. So that was the achievement that our team achieved in a short period of 3 years, right? So
3 years.
And I think what was interesting is that although we thought that worked here, when I traveled to different parts of the Southeast Asia countries and we wanted to do a plug and play, then I realized and I learned that different cultures have different needs, different wants. Whatever that works here in Singapore may not work when I go to Cambodia or when I go to Indonesia, right? So this was another learning curve for me, that it's really important to understand, again, like what you mentioned earlier, the geography. Right? What works in the States may not work here in Asia. What works here in Asia may not work in the States. So even within the Southeast Asia region, there are a lot of variables, factors involved. But one of the biggest thing is that not only about understanding about, what different cultures, different countries people behave and what people want and etc. What is the first thing that was most important for me, which in the early days I did not do, is taking a step back and analyzing and being very clear what market I want to serve, what is that niche that I want to get into, and what is that nano niche, right? Most people stop at only the high level, like, I want to be in the health industry. But what is health? Health is big, right? Are you going on weight loss? Are you going on acute conditions? Are you going on chronic conditions? What is it, right? So so I realized that the moment that you further streamline down to that small little core focus of the clients that you want to serve, that is what is the winning factor for my business. I was really laser target. I was not trying to hit everyone. I was not trying to sell to everyone, out on the streets. It was really clear, people above 30, mainly female, overweight, with health conditions. These are the people that I want to serve to, and people who loves to eat, right? They are not a bunch of folks that are already enjoying eating salad. Then these are not a crowd that I'm going to be supporting, right?
So you're not aiming for those like fitness people.
Nope. Right. So that was the only market that we were looking at back then.
And that's even transpired all the way until currently, right? Like, maybe let the audience know, because I already know a little bit about this, but let the audience know, like, what is that core, and also like how were you marketing? Because I remember in our previous conversation, you have a very particular way of marketing. You don't just blanket wide everything on Facebook or Instagram in social media ads or anything. Like, you have a very specific place, location, and demographic of who you market to. So who and how does that all play out?
All right, so this is another very interesting question, which I've gone through a lot of learning, and I believe this is going to be something that's relatable to many of the entrepreneurs out there as well. And I did not started off doing marketing on my own. What we did was we engaged agencies to do marketing for us, right? So people will always come up and pitch to me. It's like, Mark, we can help you, market your business. We can help you do branding and etc. Right? So we said, okay, branding probably come later. Let's do on marketing first. I need you to help me fill up my workshops, right? So and along the way, we realized that a lot of the agencies out there, a lot of marketers out there, first of all, they are very fluffy. They only tell you that, you just got to spend X amount of money and I get this number of people for you, right? And I didn't understand that actually there's a lot of science behind. It's not just like you put 1,000 in and you get 200 people in, right? What happens when along the way Facebook changes the algorithm, or Facebook increases the cost, or YouTube, or what is it? And I've got people coming up to me, Mark, why not you put why don't I help you market on Instagram? And I was like, okay, let's do it. It's cool, right? It's cool. But I did not know that, first of all, my clienteles of the age of 30 and above back then, They do not even have an Instagram account, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
right.
True.
And for me is that, first of all, it's really important to understand that you cannot simply just pick a marketing agency for the sake that they tell you that I can do marketing for you. That's one.
Yeah.
And number two, what I learned eventually is this, right? When you're talking about marketing, a lot of us, I was impatient. I wanted results fast. I was like, I don't care.
Right.
I'm going to put this money in. I want you to bring this in for me. I was measuring ROI through people getting leads, getting likes. But I realized eventually over time that these are not the right key indicators for me as a business owner. Getting
Correct.
likes on the post, getting share doesn't mean shit, right? Because end of the day, who pays the bills would be the people that comes in the door and it gets converted.
Yeah.
So that was the
different
key.
levels of objective. Different levels of objective. Because I'm a little bit more in this industry as well. And it's like, you can pay more money to get more eyeballs, maybe more likes, more engagement. But then the objective for those areas should be a little bit more on like branding. So people are aware of you, but it's not necessarily going to provide people coming into the business.
Right.
And in your case, when you're a smaller business, you need that revenue, you need to grow the cash flow and all this kind of stuff. You can't look into putting those big level dollars into just awareness marketing. That's kind of like where Nike and Adidas can play around with, right?
Yes, yes.
But then for your businesses, and this is maybe a little bit of my knowledge as well, it's like you need to look at the micro and nano marketing, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what they call it these days, where it's like you're targeting, you know who your audience is, you know who your clientele is, and you also understand what they are looking for in terms of how they want to be communicated to. And then you need to find the right platform and the right place that they're going to be able to discover it. So there's no point, like you were saying, advertising on Instagram at that time if 90% of your demographic doesn't exist there. It's just a waste of money. You're just going to spend.
Yep.
And then I will call out marketers, right? Shame on you guys, marketers, if you are selling this stuff. I get you're trying to make money too, but as someone that's a little bit in that industry as well, it's like you guys who... I feel, and this is my personal feeling with that industry today, every marketer now is going to say, oh, I'm a digital marketer as well.
I'm
and
a
like
guru,
you were saying,
right?
I'm a guru, like I've done, but they maybe do like traditional marketing for a long time. They don't even understand digital marketing these days. And I think you had to bite the bullet in experience to then discover yourself that that's not exactly the full truth. And you can only understand that once you spent all that money, right? It's an expensive lesson. So hopefully for all you listeners today, be aware of that.
Yes, that's really important. And I spend my time after that really investing in studying marketing, but not from people that fresh graduated from marketing school, but really, learning from the best in the industries of various parts of the world. And I realized that actually there's no other marketeer apart from us, are the best marketers for our own business, right? Really understanding exactly there's no one else that's going to know your business best. It's you. Okay, and that was where I started understanding, like, you know what? There are so much science behind marketing that yes, we can still get an agency or someone that does the hands and legs for us, but you have to be the one being very clear exactly what you want to get out of it and also how you're going to position yourself, right? So I came to the part of adjusting not only in terms of the contents, but also in terms of the headlines, the type of pictures I use, the type of font I use, the type of color on my font, and also understanding exactly what time does my client or my potential clients actually serve social media, right? So for example, if my clientele base are ladies, right, 70% of them are housewives and 30% of them are working professional ladies, I'm not going to be posting something, right, at what? 7 p.m. Because why? These are the times that either they get off from the office, they are rushing back home, or these are the time that the ladies are cooking at home, for their family. They just come back from school or work, right? So what is that best time? The best time is definitely after 9 when they are more relaxed, or during the day. So I realized that all this is so important, the nitty-gritty details, like what you mentioned earlier, right? Marketing is about understanding the macro view and also the micro view, right? It's not only about one side. You got to understand both, and you got to be able to see it from different angles. So that was for me another very important learning curve, which I highly recommend every entrepreneur here to really analyze it from that angle as well.
Yeah, I definitely like have a thought. Exactly, you're right. Like even the time you promote those ads is actually going to make a big difference in terms of whether it reaches the right person. And you're right. Like if you know that, if again, back to marketing 101, if you know who the target audience is, you need to think as if you were them, right? And kudos for you for like learning this, because everything you just mentioned is exactly what a good agency would think on your behalf. But you probably know by now, if you really get a good agency, they don't come cheap, because they don't teach you this stuff. They're just going to make the decisions for you. And hopefully you hope for the best. You hope that they're going to give you those results. But if you also tell an agency an objective that might not fit your actual need, they're going to achieve your objective. But then if later down the line you're like, oh, I'm not actually getting sales, they're like, but that's not what we plan to do. Your objective was to get the reach, right? So we helped you get there. Then you're like, shit, I spent like 30K, 40K, and I just get a bunch of likes on Facebook. That doesn't help my business. But then that, to me, again, someone in that industry is like, sorry, right? But that was the objective we discussed in the brief, and that's what we delivered. So in terms of my job, I helped you get there. So if you're going to approach an agency or get someone, a third party to do that work for you, you must be clear about what you need it to do, and then they will help you get there. And if you want to do the better way or the cheaper ways, like Mark has done here, is learn it yourself. The content is out there, right, Mark? Like if you watch enough videos, hopefully when you watch this video, you will also learn a little bit more about this kind of stuff.
So don't pay peanuts because you get monkeys.
Okay. That's a good analogy. And then, okay, so we're at you here as success now. And this would have went perfectly fine until what has recently happened around the world, which has been devastating for basically most companies. But from what I hear, you've actually been able to get a lot better from the recent COVID-19 situation. So why don't very quickly, Mark, you explain first what has happened to your business during COVID-19? Obviously, you were probably in a little bit of a stressed out mode, because it's like now you're finally finding success. You're climbing the success ladder, and then COVID came and crashed everything.
Right.
Right. It's like a hard smack in the face. And then what happened? What did you decide to do? How did you change? And then how has that really just, from what I hear, has grown your business, significantly overall? So how does that happen now?
So everything was working very well, smooth sailing. We had big dreams of new expansions, of putting our flag in different countries this year. In fact, we were targeting to expand to another 2 more countries. And in January, when the news initially came out, I did not expect that it would be so bad. And
I don't think no one expected it.
So I was like, okay. And what was worse was that we signed our lease agreement in Malaysia, right, for one of our branches,
for expansion,
right, which was for expansion. And we were supposed to start all the renovation works in March. So what happened was that I remember at the end of February, our local government started to announce that now things are getting more serious. You got to start to impose a few restrictions of how many people can come, and then suddenly, boom! Right, in a short period of 1 week, entering into March, we received memo that we could no longer operate. So
correct.
I did not, me and my whole team, I remember my whole management team, my partners, we did not have time to even come out with a backup plan, right? Like, you know what,
correct.
guys, tomorrow you can't operate. That's it.
Correct.
So I'm like,
it was
holy
immediate.
shit.
It was like it's like just parachute a brick wall in front of you.
Yeah, that's
so
it, right?
Like, boom,
and
stop.
I'm like, okay, so we thought like, okay, what do you mean by you can't operate? So we call up, I call up Enterprise Singapore, and I asked, so I'm in an education business. If I can't educate, means people can't come through the door, after they sign up for my program or before they come out to sign up for the program. How am I going to run business? Well, you got to find your ways. So we were like, I remember I was in so much stress, that fear, it's insane, right? Because I'm in I consider myself, although it's education, but we are more on the event business in the health industry, where we get our revenues through people coming for our events. From there they sign up. So if today no one is able to walk into farms, how the heck am I going to get sales, right? How am I going to pay salary and the rental? And things are still running. And I remember, like I said, we just signed a new contract for a property in Malaysia. The clock has started to run. So I was in so much stress. So now what did we do? It was a period of not even weeks, but less than 3 days. We were scrambling because our digitization roadmap was only supposed to happen by third quarter of this year. That is by August, right? And we say, you know what? We had no choice. If we don't run anything right now online, we're going to die. So we were calculating our cash flow, our reserves. We knew that, okay, we had 6 months to go, right? Now, but the question is this. That is provided that in the next 6 months, things are going to go back to normal. So we were still like, okay, let's take it slow. Let's go and try out first the online. Then suddenly another wave came that even employees could not go to work unless you are essential, right? So it's like, holy shit. So I'm like, okay, let's go and scramble out and look at what is essential. And we were glad that we had 2 business licenses. One was a F&B and one was for the education piece. So the education had to entirely shut down overnight, right? We zero my employees could come to work. They had to stay at home while we still have to pay them salary. So what happened was that immediately we did 2 things. Number one, our F&B, we pivoted from a situation where my business don't sell any products. Overnight we churn out sourdough breads, we churn out food, we churn out a whole bunch of stuff under the retail that we were sending it to the doorsteps of our clients. Number 2, with that little revenue that was coming in, when we calculated, it was not even enough to cover our rental. Neither is it enough to cover the salary of our employees. So we know that we were in deep shit, right?
Yeah, it wasn't going to be enough.
Yeah, it was really bad. I remember it was down to the extent that there were about few nights I was so stressful that I could not sleep every night. I kept talking to my wife like, you know, what should we do? You know, to the extent that I say, you know what, let's prepare ourselves for bankruptcy if things didn't go well down the road. And we were talking about, you know, what are the things we want to let go first? Are we going to let go of the whole building so that we still can have that cash reserve to hopefully pay our employees? You know, because I did not want to go to the resort of retrenching our employees while keeping that facility, right? So we were down to that level of, we were really down to that level of desperation. And I was calling up all my entrepreneur friends, you know, asking them, you know, what are you going to do with your business? And I found out that actually I'm not alone. And many of us were facing the same concerns, right? Unless if you are in the industry of supplying face masks and sanitizers, then that was a happy time, you know? So what we did immediately was that we switched to webinar. I put on my phone. I was recording videos. I was going online, pitching the program that I would usually do live, offline. Right. So it took us a few attempts. In the first few places, we didn't get any conversions. It was 0. It was heartbreaking. You know, speaking to a few hundred people and no one would sign up for my program. And eventually, after 8 attempts, right, on the 9th attempt, I managed to get my first conversion. And thereafter, I continued to fine-tune every single hour before the webinar, right? Without stop, I keep refining it, you know, fine-tuning it, and eventually we managed to hit an average of 30% to 50% conversion rate for every single webinar. So
which is
that
amazing.
was what
Those are good numbers.
That was what we did, and that was what, in a way, allowed my whole business to not only survive, right, but more importantly, we pivoted and we strive, you know, beyond survival. So that was something that was really painful for me, but at the same time, I think it was really valuable to look at crisis, how crisis can either break all of us down as entrepreneurs or business owners, right? If you allow it to happen to you and say that, you know what, I'm bad luck, shit, this shouldn't have happened. Or you could take that crisis and say, what, this is an opportunity for me to do things differently. What else can I lose if I do not try this out, right? So I think we were really glad in a way that we took it from a second approach of things like, if we don't do, we're gonna die anyway, right? Let's just go all out. And it was really at a verge of desperation, really, I would say, right? It's either a do or die. It wasn't about, okay, let's think about profitability. No, it wasn't about that mindset already. It was just
survival.
About survival, right? But again, I said we were quite blessed that it was eventually beyond survival. We went, a few times ahead of what we usually achieve in one quarter. We could do it in 1 month.
So, so I want to touch point on this as well, because I mean, I'm in the digital space. I'm a video filmmaker for a long time. I've done agency stuff. I've helped people strategize on marketing things. And now today I'm also doing education and all these things. And, Singapore and the world, it's nothing new that we've been talking about companies like, look, you guys need to digitize some of your assets, right? Like, this is not a new conversation I have had with clients. It's a very old conversation, actually, but it's very hard for people to grasp it. And there is a reluctancy to try something new. But just in this COVID situation, it's like, now you don't have a choice. You're like, you either want to try it or you want to die. Okay.
Right.
And I can relate this, back to your earlier story of your second change, right? When you decided to leave your job and just attempt this full time. And I've heard this story with many successful entrepreneurs. There's always this do or die moment in their life or in their journey that it's like, you either pivot and try or you will fail, right? And then that is the moment where it's like, okay, well, if I don't try, I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well try. And more often than not, that trying of something new, and obviously there's still work to be done in there. Like you mentioned, you had to do it 8 times before you got the first one. But since the first one, you're 9, 10, 11, 12, it just got better. You refined it more. And then what I know from digitization as just a general, direction for the future is that it enables people to scale their business. Because once you went digital, correct me if I'm wrong, once you went digital, you didn't have to only get 30 people within your one location at 1 hour throughout multiple time slots. You could scale to 100, 1,000, 2,000. It doesn't matter how many. You can go online in Singapore or Malaysia, or you could be in Singapore and someone in Indonesia and Malaysia could be watching. It doesn't matter. But you have that foundation, and then you can scale infinitely once you digitize. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And just to add on to it, right, I think that there's only 3 things I want to summarize in this part of the question here. Number one is that everyone is talking about let's go digital, right? But don't just jump into the digital and start registering accounts across all different platforms. Right? So it comes back to, again, who are you serving? We have to be very clear. What are we going to do and how are we going to do it, right? Don't get too hung up with, what are the algorithms, how does it change. Fundamentally, is when you understand these first 3 questions, it helps you to shape your marketing strategy, right? The marketing strategy is important. Like again, the next in thing now everyone is talking about is TikTok, right? So for my clients, they still do not even have Instagram yet. Most of them are still holding on to Facebook and WhatsApp. Okay, and to go to TikTok, is it important? Yes, to start to build younger crowd. But is that where my clienteles are? The answer is no. Okay, so
that's
again, like
priority.
just jumping into digitization, like everyone is saying, you should go there. This is the next big thing, right? Don't follow the herd mentality. You got to understand first exactly what it is for you and your clients. Where do they hang out with? That's number 1. Okay. Number 2, people always thought that the moment you go into digital space, things are going to be rosy. Everyone is going to turn up to have amazing stuff. No, it doesn't. Like I said, my webinar was not successful until the 9th round, and the amount of effort and work that I had to put in is crazy, right? I was reading, I was watching, I was speaking to myself in front of the phone, in front of the toilet mirror when I was showering, right? There's a lot of effort put in that you got to be able to do it, right? You got to put in the work, you know. So it's just continue fine-tuning, don't give up, although times are difficult. And the last thing that I really learned is through this whole crisis, right? It allowed me to think again, what is that new way of running business, right? And earlier you mentioned a very good quote, Mark. In the past, you could only cater 30 people, you know, in each hour at your physical space. Now you can do 1 hour with 300 people, right? So that made me think as well, you know, what am I going to do with my office space here in Singapore? What am I going to do with the office space in Malaysia and also in Indonesia, where we have a partner there locally, right? And again, I think adaptability is the word. We have to adapt with the environment, with the time that is changing. We can't hold back and say that let's see how it goes, and hopefully things will go back to normal. Things do not go back to normal. You just got to keep on chasing, and you just got to keep on staying on the curve, riding the wave. And what I really enjoyed about this, while many business owners are finding COVID-19 a nightmare, you know, for them, I find that in fact it allowed us to run things more effectively at the scale that I never thought it was possible, because I'm more lean in terms of my resources. Before the COVID-19, I was planning to hire another 8 more, you know, people, right, into my organization. But now I did not hire 8 more, and I'm still running at the same amount of resources. But more importantly, we are generating 5 times the revenue of what we were generating back then. And the beauty of it is this, right? I get to scale my business, you know, like ways that I would never ever imagine I could do it, and my margins are much better because why? Now I don't need to fly my whole team to different countries. I don't need to rent an event space. I don't need to rent hotels. I can do it just with my phone and a laptop. So these are the 3 takeaways, right?
But I just want to wrap things up here with maybe some final numbers, because we went through some of that journey. And I think, you know, for people listening, they're going to be interested in like, okay, Mark, where are you today then? What are some of your numbers? So please just share the numbers that you're comfortable with sharing. But we went over your first few years of being more than like negative $250,000 in debt, going through the motions and getting another loan. And in the second or third year, you were saying then you were seeing more of like the $1.3 million revenue numbers. And then when you scaled up, then you were more of the 3 point something million dollars. And then until just recently, right? So I'm talking like probably the last 3-4 months, okay? Share with us, what is the current average, maybe foresight of your new business model, and what do you foresee you possibly making at the end of this year, even with the COVID-19 situation?
So we are looking at hitting 6 million by end of this year, right? So we are looking at, so what we have achieved in the past is definitely a double-digit growth on year to year. So the target has not changed for us this year, and I'm glad that we are already halfway there, considering that the first part of the year is already gone. So that is what we are looking at in terms of the numbers. The second question is around how differently are we going to run our business? I think things are definitely going to be very different. People keep asking what is going to be the new norm. I do not know what is the new norm. I only know that now this is a norm, right? What we are in right now, all these Zoom calls, these are the norm, right? And again, it's really thinking from that angle, like how can we provide our services and our products to the market, to the consumers, more effectively, cheaper way, and again, even remotely, right, without having a physical presence. These are the things that I think all of us got to start thinking from the area of our business. And like I said, it's really about adapting with the whole change.
what are the one final message you have for the potential viewers who have watched until now? What's the one key takeaway that you would like them to, I guess, take away from this session that we've had today?
Instead of one key takeaway, I'm going to give you 3 points for takeaway. Number 1,
Sure.
really important that you have a very good, strong team that is staying with you through storm and sunshine. We can't do this alone. I could not have achieved all of this success without a great team. So team is really important. Number 2, you do not need to have big visions. I always thought that in order for me to be successful in my business, I need to have like a 20-year vision of where my business is going to be. What is more important is that you are very clear each year, all right, what you want to achieve. That roadmap needs to be clear. If you can't look above 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, doesn't matter. At least within that 1 year, you got to be very clear what you want to achieve. Then along the way, you will find your answers. Now, last but not least, it's not only about working hard, but it's more importantly about working smart. In a way that when I don't mean by just working smart in an intelligent way, but really breaking down your strategies into measurable timelines and measurable figures, right? Many times when we set a number, we just see that number, but you will find that those numbers are really impossible to reach. But the moment when you break it down into smaller pieces and you develop plans around there, then actually that number is not really that difficult. So these are the 3 key takeaways from my years of building my business, and I find that it is really important that all of you hopefully benefit from these 3 sharing, because it did for me. It changed my life, and I'm going to continue to apply these 3 takeaways that I share with you in my life in building my business. Thank you, Gary.
I think we're going to wrap that up. Thank you for giving us your time and your insights and all that kind
Pleasure.
of stuff. I hope the viewers find this all valuable. Thank you for coming. I hope you had a great experience. Did you have a good experience?
It was great,
Yeah?
man. It was great. Great to be the first one on your show. And in fact, many things that I've shared with you, I've not in fact shared with many people out there. So I hope your audience will enjoy these things that I've just shared.
Thank you for being here. I'm just going to stop my recording, and without further ado, thank you guys. Koay
you.
out. Peace.
All right. Bye.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Now, I hope you found that insightful and entertaining, because I know I did when I conducted the interview. Now, if you haven't done so already, we also exist on Facebook and LinkedIn. So do try and find our page and give us a follow so that you can keep up to date with anything new that's happening with us. And until you see us in the next video or see me in the next video, I hope you have a great day, and I wish you the best. Koay out. Peace.